Hello and welcome to another Full Wales See Wales with me, Robin Morgan.
Me, Mel and Will.
And me, Will Hayward.
The excitement is still bubbling, but I feel like we're in a more normal mood than we were in our last episode. Last episode was obviously a emergency results app. Now we know a little bit more has happened. Robin is still at sea. He's still scared of coming home. Robin, how do you feel in these last few days now since we've got into a week since election?
It feels like, it feels like a back to school week. It feels like everyone's kind of like seeing everybody in the Senedd now, like getting their planners and working out which is week A and which is week B. It feels like everyone's got their fresh stationery and they're back in it now. It feels quite exciting. And as we said at the end of the last episode, like election done, governing to come, right? So it feels like let's see what they're made of. Like in terms of this first 100 days, we're in it now, right? We're in it. So let's see what's going to happen.
Yeah, TikTok readercorn. 100 days is upon us.
I think it is worth saying because a few people didn't really realise you were actually on a boat. Like quite a few people were like, "Oh, what's the joke about Robin being on a boat?" But can you just explain where are you right now? Where are you actually?
So I'm currently on a cruise ship in Kefalonia. When we did the first episode, I was in just outside Athens, and tomorrow I go to Corfu and then I fly back home. I've been doing some gigs on a boat. The gigs are quite strange, but swimming in the sea, delightful. Saw some lovely things in Kefalonia this morning. It's been really, really nice, and just great. The amount of people talking about Plaid Cymru in Greece is zero. It's still zero.
That's so lush though, that like you're away, you're at the high seas of all the times as well. But I absolutely love this for you. It's just added a spice to our podcast that literally nobody could have predicted,
Nobody could have predicted nor asked for.
No, there is that as well. I mean, but we look forward to seeing you. Will, I want to ask you actually about, so we said like we're in the first 100 days. Well, they're starting, TikTok, boom, we're off. I only know the Welsh for this, so this might make this question difficult. But what's tunny a hw? Which is like, they said that all the new MSs, when they become an MS, they have to tunny hw. Isn't there like a ceremonial thing that some of them have to do to start with before they officially become an MS?
Yeah, so they have to take the oath. So basically they have to go into the Senedd chamber and take an oath. Unlike what you kind of see in Westminster, where it's like, basically they all go in and they all do it. They basically have been kind of dripping in over the weekend because some people are coming from North Wales and you couldn't have them in the next day. It's pretty a bit harsh to have them come in. So yeah, they're going in, they're swearing their oaths, they're getting the laptops, they're getting the offices. So obviously 36 extra members. They've managed to find an office for everyone, which is, nothing says fun, exciting political analysis like bureaucratic procedures within the Senedd. I think what office people are going to get is always exciting. I went on Saturday at midday down to the Senedd for Plaid's kind of welcome thing, where they basically, all the new MSs and the Renacorn stood on the steps of the Senedd, and I remember I spoke to some people from Plaid before, like people within the Senedd group, and they thought it was going to be a bit of a press conference, but there was loads of people there with flags. It was a really big deal. Did you see the videos from there?
Loads of people down there.
Breaking into the national anthem halfway through. I don't remember Welsh Labour getting that. Maybe the first election they ever won. I'm not sure. I was a little babba. I don't know. But it felt like a real, moment in history, right?
What is weird, when you're down there as a journalist and you're kind of outnumbered by supporters, you're there watching it, and you can appreciate the excitement that it's a moment in history, but it's not like you're not there as a supporter, you're there reporting. And I was quite shocked at the emotion that people were showing. I mean, there was some MSs visibly in tears. It felt like a huge moment, and I think you're right about Labour. I don't think you'd have seen Welsh Labour have that same kind of vibe, even if they'd done really, really well, because I think for Plaid it was like, we can't believe this has happened. For Labour it's like, well, this would always happen. If we're on Labour, I might as well actually mention now, did you see the piece that Jo Stevens wrote for Wales Online? She did like a first person piece.
it was quite the take, wasn't it? It was very sort of indicative of where UK Labour stand, I think, which is kind of almost trying to appeal to everybody and going down this sort of reform angle of the reason they lost is this Ugandan tree planting thing and 20 mile an hour. It felt absolutely bizarre and sort of tone deaf, I think, to the problems which Welsh Labour felt on from a UK level coming down. And obviously Joe Stevens has had, knives out for her from Welsh Labour for a while, so maybe this was her going like, fucking good riddance. But it felt like a bizarre sort of like hot take from her.
Yeah, I saw that, and then I also saw a few interviews. I saw her on Politics Wales on Sunday morning, and interestingly, I thought again the knives were out, to be honest, for Welsh Labour. She was very kind of clear that she felt the failings were all of the devolved issues, the things that Welsh Labour and the Senedd had responsibility for. That divide between parliamentary Welsh Labour and Senedd Welsh Labour, or even just UK Labour and Welsh Labour, that gap feels wider after this election so much, and the animosity, and you've seen like the MSs who lost their seats coming out swinging as well for their parliamentary candidates. There's a lot of divide in that party right now.
Yeah, there absolutely is. And I think we've had a lot of new listeners over the last kind of week. So just for context, so you've got Welsh Labour, which is quite a nebulous almost concept. So Welsh Labour have ran the Welsh government for the last 26 years, and the leader of Welsh Labour was Eluned Morgan. But although she technically led Welsh Labour, there's huge influence from UK Labour in how kind of way like Welsh Labour is run. So the staff are all paid for by UK Labour, and this divide between what even kind of is Welsh Labour a thing unto itself? Is it an arm of UK Labour? And Jo Stevens is the Secretary of State for Wales, so she's in Keir Starmer's cabinet, and what her role is supposed to be the voice of Wales in cabinet, but not just with her, but with lots of Secretary of State since devolution, since the Senedd was created. People have seen it more as like the voice of the cabinet in Wales. And some of the comments she made in this piece, now she did say that she thinks that the UK government has made mistakes, and she pointed to things like winter fuel and changes to welfare. But she didn't say that any of the mistakes were not giving any concessions on any kind of Welsh Labour demands. But then this line that you both mentioned, where she was talking about Ugandan tree planting. So she said, people are rightly cross about the rollout of the 20 mile an hour speed restrictions and public money being spent on tree planting in Uganda when we aren't getting the basics right. The NHS, education, the cost of living, any time spent away from those key priorities was a time waste. And that is a finger up to UK Labour, to Welsh Labour, sorry. And I think what is really, I've spoken to a lot of people who you would say are the Welsh bit of Welsh Labour, who are really, really cheesed off about what she said here. And I kind of do get it, because whether or not you agree with what she's saying, this is like the most reform narrative you could imagine. The tree planting in Uganda costs about £250,000 a year. It's a semi-detached house in Swansea worth of spending a year. And actually it's offset 25% of Wales's transport emissions. So it just isn't the kind of thing. And the fact that she thinks that contrition is going, oh, we got that wrong, rather than defending the thing that they've did, which really doesn't matter anyway. 20 miles an hour has made a massive difference in the health service. So I don't know why she's kind of come out. Well, I know why she's come out like this, because she's basically saying the blame for this result is Welsh Labour. It is the people in the Senedd. It's not UK Labour. It's not our fault.
What I find quite strange about it is, I know you sort of said, that's why she's come out, but why? What's the point? What's the point in saying this, apart from to potentially sort of like secure her own place on a general election sort of level? Like, oh no, we're still, we don't want to lose our votes to reform in 3 years' time. It just felt like kicking someone when they're down, to be completely honest. Like, and as you say, look. There's an argument. Some people have the argument of any money that's not spent in Wales during a cost of living crisis should be spent. That I think that's a valid argument. But as we talked about soft power, as we talked about emissions, in previous episodes, but it just felt needless, and sort of that thing of, is UK Labour still trying to play cosplay as reform like the Welsh Tories did?
I actually think there's perfectly legitimate reasons to criticise the Ugandan tree planting scheme. I can see why people would argue for it. I can see why you can argue against it. But if you're saying that's kind of why they lost the election, I think you kind of got rocks in your head. But Welsh Labour at the moment, well, Labour in Wales, have basically created this circular firing squad where they're all just shooting at each other. And what actually needs to happen is they need to have a real conversation about why they lost in Wales. Why have they just had a century of domination gone? And they need to be able to have actual hard questions with each other. And my concern is that what they're going to do is just get anyone in place. So Ken Skates has been made the kind of temporary leader. He is the choice, as I understand it, of UK Labour. Like, I know Ken Skates quite well. He's a perfectly nice guy. But if they just carry on and kind of put unity or outward unity ahead of actual having a conversation, they're just going to continue to flounder. Like, there needs to be I think a huge wholesale change in what Welsh Labour is, and they need to decide what they are and then commit to it. Not this kind of halfway house broad church. At the moment, you're a broad church which no one wants to go in, and no one is even likes each other. So I use the analogy in the newsletter. It's like a relationship where you've been together for decades, and the love's gone, but you'd rather continue along miserably than have some awkward conversations. And I think they need to have those conversations and stop leaving passive-aggressive notes on the fridge.
Is there an argument that whoever the party were and however good they were at their job, that this is simply too long to be in power for any party to do well? That, there are obvious failings within Welsh Labour's performance in Wales, 100%. But to give them some grace, is there a possibility that, we as voters get sick of parties after too long and they do come crashing down? I wonder if, to give them some credit, is that really fighting against them, that they've been here since the start of devolution? I mean, obviously they've been decimated, but then is this a good opportunity for them? The dead wood's been cleared out. It's interesting that a lot of their older faces have still clung on, but is this a good opportunity for them to really build from the ground up again and be a new exciting party?
You're right. I mean, anyone who's been in a job a long time knows keeping the same level of energy is really hard. Like, it just is. I don't think you can argue that Welsh Labour at the end were a kind of dynamic force, awash with new ideas and energy. They just weren't. Of their 9 MSs, I'm just looking at the list now, they've only got 2 which are new. Shav Taj and Hugh Thomas. The rest are kind of established names. I mean, Lynn Neagle's been in there since the start of Devolution. I mean, when you look at it, actually, most of the people in there are were supporters with Vaughan Gethin. I don't think it's who is obviously closer to UK Labour. I don't think they are going to have the conversations that they need at the moment. But then again, a UK Labour having the conversations that they need. As we speak, Keir Starmer's still just about Prime Minister. Shall we talk a little bit about Plaid and what they do next?
Yes.
It was fascinating to see how excited Plaid Cymru were as they kind of took their seats inside the Senate for the first time. Although it is exciting, what actually really matters now is what happens next. Like, that success is a moment in time, and what it will be defined by is not the fact they've won. It be defined by whether they manage to fulfil on the promises that they've said. They have promised to change Wales. They've promised to change Manchester. They've promised that they will run things differently, that Wales will get better under their watch. And I think they need to fulfil this. They need to crack on. I made a list of some of the things that because they did their 100-day plan, didn't they? As you mentioned, Mel, we were 5 days in. Like, we're 5% of the way into the plan, and we're probably still hungover. So the 100-day plan will end in August. So that will be the first 100 days is mid-August. They have said that by then, I mean, there's a whole long list of things. There's dozens and dozens of things they've said. One of the things that they've said that they will do is they will have expanded free school meals for all secondary school kids. that claim universal credit by September. So by September, that will be rolled out at the extra free school meals. They've also said that they'll be putting together the plans for the rollout of the 12.5 hours of funded childcare. They've said that they will have put forward the plan, which they'll have published a plan, which will mean that by the end of 2026, there'll be these like elective hubs like around Wales, which will be kind of apparently going through the waiting lists. But they have got to crack on. Like, people are impatient, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. People voted for change. They want change. And the problem with voters is we want it now. You know, they want to see that difference, which is incredibly difficult. It's incredibly different to deliver noticeable change in 5 years, you know, but Plaid need to learn the lessons that Keir Starmer didn't, or kind of set the path, and they need to avoid doing everything that Starmer did in his first year. So yeah, they've got a lot to deliver, and I'm sure I'm not going to, you know, make many friends saying this, but they have a lot of borrowed votes from this election that they're going to really need to show why they were the people to trust if they want to ride that again. But yeah, you know, you were saying about, you know, they're breaking into the national anthem outside the Senate and whatnot. One thing I will say, which I do love about our country, is that can happen and it not feel like a rally. Do you know what I mean? I think there are certain countries, maybe one not so far away, where had that happened, I'd feel like my life were in danger. You know, whereas in Wales, they're like, oh, bless them, someone's granddad's brought their choir here. It's lovely stuff, you know?
A real sick burn on France there, Mel. How dare you?
Zing.
I think they've got to get to work, right? They've got to get to work where you know, they must have, if they've got a 100-day roadmap on their little chart and they're crossing off the days, those X's are starting to get together now, aren't they? And you need to start showing people that, you know, as you say, some borrowed votes. People want change. People want it quite quickly. But they do have that Starmer blueprint of this is what not to do. Okay, so I suppose how are they going to do that? They must be aware of that. Isn't communication a big thing for them, Will, in terms of like we're going to show you what we're doing and communicate it constantly? Have they said that?
I mean, Wales's problems are really entrenched, and they're not going to be fixed in a year. Like, there's just no way. They probably won't all be fixed within 4 years. But I think what you always need to do when you're communicating stuff is manage people's expectations, but also show as you go along. Because, you know, if you're at McDonald's and you've done your order and you can see your order on the screen and your order 38, if you are just sat there and you're just in a vacuum and you're just waiting for people to, at some point you're going to get your number, you get more impatient than if you can see the numbers going down, because you know where you're at in the queue. And I think that's always really helpful. So what they've said they're going to do is within those first 100 days, they're going to establish this kind of digital dashboard, they've called it. And what that will do is show these are the targets that we've got. This is where we want to get to. And this is where we're at on those targets. And they want to kind of communicate these kind of measurable outcomes. And what they'll have to do firstly with that is they have to set the targets. And you want a target which is, you know, achievable but ambitious. And that's a really hard thing to do. And they've said they're going to set up this dashboard that people will be able to follow it. Now, I have no doubt that is what they intend to do. And I've got no doubt that they'll actually probably set that up. My question is always, once things get hard, once the data actually isn't showing that you're hitting targets, are you going to be as open? Are you going to have that mentality of, oh yeah, we've got to be really open with the public, when openness opens you up for criticism? And I think that's going to be a tough thing. It's going to take a lot of self-confidence from Plaid to do that. But ultimately, that's what we need them to do. Like whether you voted for Plaid or not, and I think you're right about borrowed votes, Mel. Everyone in Wales needs them to succeed. Like the emergency is too big. The challenges are too dire and important for them not to succeed. They've got to make this work.
That communication is so important, I do think, and if done well, could really put them in good stead. I think a classic example is like the previous Welsh government's mishandling of like the new farming policies and so on, which were actually not that bad. Do you know what I mean? They weren't that bad. They were just communicated so terribly and not taking those people with them. And I think Plaid could really avoid a lot of stuff like that if they do communicate this stuff well.
It's the same with 20 mile an hour as well, right? Like, I think if you'd have come out and gone, it's going to save this many lives, this many children's injuries, and over the course of X amount of time, it's going to save you money because of these things, people are like, right, okay. And if they're like, look, we know it's a bit annoying, but look, seatbelts used to be annoying for people, and look how that's helped. There's the communication line. You bring people with you. I think that digital dashboard thing, I think, is a very good idea in principle. How many people are going to go on this digital dashboard? How many people are going to make it their homepage on their website? Zero, right? So do they continually have to sort of like tell people where these things are? I remember during like the COVID briefings, knowing that if cases went below like 100 per whatever, then we got to go down the stages of lockdown. So I was like, oh my God, I'm going to check it. So if people have got these things of like, a bit of carrot and stick, like, look, if you meet your targets, you're all going to get a free pizza. Or if you're not going to get, maybe if we don't meet our targets, if it's delivered in more than half an hour, you get a free Papa John's. A bit of carrot and stick, please, Reem.
If you're still dying on a waiting list, we'll give you a pepperoni passion.
Perfect. It's fine.
With Plaid, there's a few questions that they're going to have to answer. We know you brought up farming, Mel. They've delayed some difficult conversations during the election about farming and about environmental challenges. They've delayed some tricky conversations about green energy policy and stuff like that. And also, they've delayed key questions about how much they're going to fund the civil service in Wales. Because if you want to make big changes, you need to have a kind of the mechanics in place to facilitate those changes. And Wales has a really, I think, underfunded is probably, we have a small public civil service. I'm not saying it's the most efficient civil service in the world, but I think they going to have to invest in that? And they're all kind of open questions at this point, aren't they?
One thing I wanted to, and perhaps this is moving to a slightly different topic now, but there are, when it comes to delivering for Wales, we've got 36 more MSs to do that. So I wanted to kind of ask you, Will, somebody said to me the other day, what on earth are all of these MSs doing? Because when you're watching the count and you're seeing all of them being elected in every seat, it looks like a lot of people. Yep. And for people who aren't feeling like they're being well represented now, well served, there's another 36. So I wanted to ask you, for those people who are unsure as to why this has happened, what is the history behind the expansion of the Senedd, and what differences do you think this is going to make?
Okay, so the Senedd used to be 60 members. It's now been expanded to 96, and this was really controversial because people would say, well, we have got loads of struggling public services. Why are we paying for more politicians? And I explore this quite a bit in the book. This is why I'm looking at my notes over here. If my face isn't looking directly at the screen, it's because I'm just checking that I'm using the right figures. So they expanded the Senedd to 96 members. Personally, I think that the argument for doing that was justifiable. The reason being, 60 is so small for a country of 3 million. So Scotland had 215% more people in their parliament. They had 129 compared to Wales is 60. So Scotland was more than twice the size. We've expanded it and we're still smaller than Scotland. It's not like we've made it bigger than Scotland, which has a bigger population. The other reason for doing it is basically a lot of the scrutiny of Welsh government and the laws that they make happens in committees. So it happens in committees in the Senedd where MSs will have to, in government, will have to go in and justify why they've done stuff, and laws will get scrutinised, and basically they'll get experts in to look at different facets of the law and say, right, why are we doing this? Is there a better way to do it? And that's actually what good opposition is. The problem that we had was, when we've only got 60 MSs, and many of them are, 14 odd of them are in government, that leaves the others who are in the committees spread over multiple committees. And it meant that you weren't able to kind of get specialist knowledge. If you were in, say, the farming committee, but you're also in the education committee, they are two hugely different things. And you need to be an expert on both. And it was hard to do. So the idea of expanding it was to make the scrutiny of the Welsh government better. Because if you think about it like this, right, the Welsh government, say, has 15 people in the cabinet, and of that's 25% of all MSs were in government. So the other 75% were supposed to scrutinise them, but 15 of those will have also been within Welsh Labour. So Welsh Labour had 30 MSs, 15 odd of them in government, 15 odd of them are on the back benches, but they're less likely to want to criticise their own party. So you really only had 30 people. And I always think the interesting, you hear it a lot said that in any parliament, you basically got a third of people are quite shit. You've got a third who are okay, and you've got a third who are good. If you have only 60 members, and we say 20 of them are a bit crap, that only leaves 40 people. And so if you want to move people around and actually get the best people in post, that it makes it much harder to do. I'm not saying that Westminster, by the way, is an amazing well of talent, but if you've got 650 MPs, you've got kind of maybe 200 that are going to be good, as opposed to in Wales where we had 20. It does cost money to expand the Senedd, but it needs to increase the efficiency of the Welsh Government by 0.07% a year. If those MSs make the Welsh Government 0.1% more efficient, they have more than paid for themselves. So I think the system's rubbish. I think the fact that each constituency's got 6 MSs is mad, because the good MSs are going to get loads of work, have to do loads of work, and it's easy for the lazy ones to coast. And I think that will happen. But yeah, so that was kind of what underpins the expansion of the Senedd.
I do think the 6 thing is really interesting. I've got 6 people representing me. Who will I contact if I have an issue? Will I contact potentially a party that I voted for? If I didn't vote for one of the parties that got elected, do I go for one that I like the most? Like, is it like picking a horse where I choose the funniest name? Like, what's the vibe there? And as you say, Will, like, we've all worked in groups in schoolwork, and people are quite happy to coast. People are quite happy to be like, yeah, can you put my name on it, please? Yeah, that's absolutely great. And that will happen. And I suppose if we think of, like, as you say, sort of opposition and scrutiny coming from committees, do we think some of the new MSs will be happy to put the work in and do the actual hard graft and scrutiny?
I mean, ultimately, Plaid Cymru are going to need some really good opposition. They're going to need scrutiny. They're going to need to be challenged. Now, Reform are the people who are going to do that. They are the official opposition. They've got 34 members. Will they do the real scrutiny? Will they be at the committees? Will they? Because opposition isn't just going on social media and saying, oh, look what you've done, this has made me angry, clip, social, goes out doing our job. Real, scrutiny is in the committees, but it's also in, offering a realistic, different vision. So you can't just say this is rubbish. What you really want to be saying is, why don't you do this? And that's what real scrutiny is. Now, I've had a few conversations with people in Reform in Wales over the last couple of days, obviously all off the record, because they all get told off if they talk to me, because they really care about free speech. Now, what I think will be interesting with them is, some of them said we are literally planning to use FMQs as just a way of creating social media content. I also had sources within the party who've told me that, have you guys ever heard of astroturfing?
I mean, I know what astroturf is, but I feel like this is going to be an analogy that I don't know of.
So basically, astroturfing is like a political technique, which it's where you basically fake that there is a grassroots movement against something or for something. As I understand it, sources within Reform have told me that they are planning on flooding platforms like social media with basically huge amounts of opposition to Plaid, which are basically from bots and from paid-for accounts, in order to manufacture the perception that there's a large grassroots opposition. I'm not saying there aren't people in Wales who are opposed to Plaid, there 100% are. But I think part of what their plan is to try and ride this wave. And I've approached Reform for comment on this. We'll see what they say. I'm sure they will deny that this is, well, I don't know if they'll reply at all, but if they do reply, I'm sure they'll deny this is. But I've got really reputable sources within Reform who are telling me this is part of the plan. That won't make Wales better. If Reform want to kind of buck the perception of them that they are on this as basically just a stepping stone for Westminster, if they want to buck that perception, they need to provide real, credible, thoughtful opposition. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. We wait and see. But Plaid need that. We can't. If Plaid had just got Reform just shouting at them, that isn't actually going to make government in Wales any better, I don't think. And we really need them to be held to account.
Are we running the risk of Plaid not having a good enough opposition because Reform are going to use that tactic and kind of not do it by the proper means, and then the other parties, I suppose, are all left of centre anyway, and it's in their interest to support Plaid in the majority of policies, or anything that they try to shift? Are we running a risk of there just not really being... Is it just the Tories, again, with their 7 members, spearheaded by Dazza Mills, that are going to be in opposition? That sounds ridiculous.
If you have parties which are not putting forward kind of credible alternatives, it just drags everything down. Like, Welsh Labour are obviously the overwhelming responsible for their own actions, but the fact that there's been no credible alternative to them for many years allowed them to kind of slip into the lethargy I think they were in. I don't know. I mean, with Reform, I mean, I didn't see Dan Thomas at all over the weekend in any kind of coverage. Did you, Rob, from your boat?
No, he's not on any small boats near me, but I think that's probably quite predictable. He's not ridden any turtles near me. No, I haven't seen him across anything. I believe they didn't really put him up for any of the media rounds, which is baffling, isn't it? Because like he's obviously come in because he is like the guy. He's the one who's going to lead Wales. This is the thing. Does he want to do it? Like, do they actually want to do it? I don't know. Like, maybe we'll see. But I mean, like that thing about just like astroturfing, that's fascinating. That's really bleak and really fascinating, because they've obviously got people within the party who, you know, like I saw a couple of backstories of certain people that they've got in, and it's fascinating, you know, from different walks of life, and people obviously will feel like these people will represent them. So I don't know, will Reform voters get pissed off if they start to see, I don't know, them defecting or quitting? And as we mentioned, you know, like when a shadow cabinet gets formed, like when the infighting will begin, which it will Reform voters A, care, or B, get pissed off about it?
I have the sense that there are a lot of really good campaigners within Reform in Wales. Being a campaigner does not make you a good MS, it does not make you a good parliamentarian, and I wonder if that is where their skill set lies. We could be proven wrong. They could be a really effective opposition. They come in, they hold Plaid to account. At the end of the day, they had a big share of the public vote, you know, and they might really represent those people. But my suspicion is they're good at campaigning. The nitty-gritty boring bit, which is the next few years now, you know, I don't know.
I think what is interesting with Reform is, like, the more I've looked at it, the more I'm convinced they had a bad night. Like, they did have a bad night in Wales. Like, Farage didn't show up. They got so. Yeah, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, like, they'll be happy that they got, like 34 seats isn't a bad result, but they will be disappointed with it because ultimately less than 30% of people who voted in Wales voted for them. Like, you can't be the voice of the people in Wales when 70% of people don't want you to be their voice. Like, and I think if they'd have marketed themselves like, we are an emerging force in Wales, we could be the biggest, but we're going to get over 30 seats, and they'd got that, I'd have thought, yeah, wow, that's a really good night. If you're standing up and saying, we are a political earthquake who are going to not only be the biggest party, we are going to have over 50% of the votes and form the next Welsh government, and then you fail to do that, and they were well short of that. I mean, they won 2 seats in Newport, in Casnewydd Loen, I mean, where their leader was standing, like their kind of heartland. They won 2 seats. So out of 6. So they haven't like romped home with this kind of glorious charge. They are annoyed about that because it's when you're a party on the right, the only thing you got is winning. And if you're not winning, you need to distance yourself from it, which is maybe why he didn't show up over the weekend.
I enjoyed Dan Thomas say, like, the momentum is with us, you know, like that was a big thing he was trying to say in his speech. You know, like 4 years ago, this party had 1%. Now we've got 30% of the vote. And as we know, lines only work up. So in 4 years, we are going to absolutely tank it. Yes.
Yeah, that's how lines work, famously.
Yeah.
It would be really interesting to know why Dan Thomas wasn't the face of reform over the weekend in the coverage at such a key time. You know, I would love to know if that was a personal choice, whether the party chose, why the party chose that. I saw Llŷr on a lot of stuff. Yeah, it'd be really interesting to know why Dan, who they should be trying to make a real name. Do you know what I mean? They should really almost be trying to make him Nigel's mini-me in Wales. And I feel like that didn't happen during the campaign. There will be a lot of Reform voters who have no idea what the name Dan Thomas is. Why they didn't use this momentum that they have, that is with them, his words, why they're not trying to use that to increase his profile. Because ultimately, you know, the Reunicorns profile did Plaid Cymru wonders as well. You know, I think he's the first leader that Plaid Cymru have had who the public, I want to admire. And I mean that in no disrespect to the previous ones, but I think he's carried himself in the air that previous Plaid Cymru members, leaders have not carried themselves.
Do you think better than Leanne?
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't mean that on a personal level.
No.
I genuinely think this is the first time Plaid Cymru have taken themselves seriously as a party, as an election-winning party. I think they've shown up professionally. I think they've shown up really well. I know Leanne Wood was, you know, at those times in like the debate where she would be like the only woman in those debates, maybe, you know, or she'd be like with Nicola Sturgeon and so on. And I think she carried herself well, but I don't think she appealed to mass public in the same way that Reen has.
So I think one thing I really would kind of push back on, which is what Reform have put out, is this idea that they've come from nothing. Like, Reform are Brexit Party were UKIP. Like, this thing of, oh, you know, we've come from nowhere. Like, you had 7 seats, you had 7 MSs in the in 2016 under UKIP, some of which were running again for you now in this election. Mark Reckless ran as a UKIP MS in 2016, got in, went to about 4 other parties, and now has run for Reform again. This isn't like they were nowhere to be seen. The reason they didn't do well at the last election in Wales is because basically Farage wasn't fully engaged with it. But that doesn't mean that they're this kind of new force. They've just put on a different rosette, which is only slightly different in colour to, like, it's basically the Brexit Party rosette. They've basically opened up the Microsoft Paint palette, and they've just gone slightly over from purple up to blue. Let's not act like this is some kind of grassroots movement.
I think of it like when they're giving out free samples in supermarkets and you go around with a different disguise so you can get more and more.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, going past where they have the little cheese blocks and you're just like swiping one off the little stick. Oh, I used to love doing that as a kid when my mum was shopping. She'd be like, oh, I know where Melanie is. I'll be there with my hood up by the cheese counter, by the little deli bit. So I give it a salami.
I wanted to finish with just a chat, because obviously Plaid are going to be making their demands of UK Labour soon, because, I mean, it was pretty much their entire manifesto was making demands of UK Labour. What do you think the responses are going to be? Because I was looking at some of the data, and what's quite interesting is Plaid got a bigger vote share in this election than UK Labour got in the general election. And it just shows how mad the electoral system is in Westminster, that you can win like 33% of the vote and get 60-odd% of the seats. It's just crazy, isn't it?
My gut feeling is that Reunicorn is going to go to Welsh Labour and be like, right, let's see the goodies that we've all heard so much about. Let's start seeing some of this. And UK Labour are going to be like, mate, are you joking? We've got quite a bigger fish to fry right now. What happens in Wales? Couldn't give a shit. Our party is breaking down. Reform have taken all of our councils. Scotland, let's not even go there. Can you give us a minute? And I think we're just going to be in that cycle constantly.
I think Joe Stevens' op-ed in Wales Online is quite indicative of where the cabinet lies at the moment. Whether that will still be the cabinet in 40 minutes, I don't know. So I suppose it's a wait and see moment.
I'm inclined to agree with you. I think they're going to be pretty obstinate, and I think it so much depends on who the Prime Minister is. I mean, if there is a new PM, I think it depends, doesn't it? I mean, if it's Starmer's still there, I think it will be more of the same. If it's Andy Burnham, That would be interesting. I did make the prediction of an Andy Burnham, Rena Puworth bromance over Christmas, so maybe that will come to fruition. We probably need to wrap up, but while we're recording this, the vote for the next fluid, the speaker inside the Senedd, is happening. There could be some shenanigans around that. We don't know yet what that's going to be, so we're not going to talk about that now. But it will definitely be something we will discuss at the live show.
Absolutely.
Indeed.
I love shenanigans. I live for shenanigans.
Yes.
And I think we need
Me
more
too.
shenanigans in the Senedd. I'm here for it.
Agree. I do find it quite funny that we've extended by 36. Reform have got 34, so we've basically built them like a little extension on the right of the house. That's essentially what we've done.
A granny annex.
One thing I would like to end on, if it's okay, Will, is to say a big Pembroke Happers to you because it's your birthday and you're recording on your actual birthday.
Thank you, Robin. I don't know why I feel like this might be a trap.
It's not a trap, but I do have a birthday treat for you, which is a birthday message from somebody. I believe producer Daryl will have sent you a video, and you can watch it with your volume up, and then we can put it on the screen for people who are watching.
Okay, so for listeners, I have got on my screen from a 10-second clip, which is a picture of a video of a turtle in the open ocean. So I'm going to press play. Am I good to press play?
Hello, Will. Anthony Slaughter here, doing what I always do, embodying a Kefalonian turtle. Have a good birthday. Pembroke Happers. Bye-bye.
So
He sent that to me this morning.
Anthony Slaughter sent you a video describing himself as a Kefalonian turtle, did he?
No, that was him. That was him. What he does is when he's not in the Senedd,
he does such a good Robin Morgan
Yeah.
turtle impression. Thank you so much for that,
that
Anthony
was
Slaughter.
superb.
If you're an audio listener, you can't begin to imagine how pleased Robin is looking with himself on his video. He is. Yeah, he's going a bit red with excitement. He's crying. He's actually visibly crying at his own joke, but he's turned Anthony Slaughter into a Kefalonian turtle and done an impression of him.
It's because I was wandering around Kefalonia this morning and I saw one of these turtles and they're beautiful. Videoed it, and then as I was on my own, I was giggling to myself, thinking I'm going to do a voiceover for Will and pretend to be Anthony Slaughter, and I was having to do a voiceover as people from the cruise ship passengers who'd seen me not have a good gig last night do a voiceover as they were walking past me.
You know when you set out, you're like, I'm going to be a comedian. Is that the scene that you really saw yourself in?
I don't mind
People
it.
say to me, "Oh, what are Robin and Mel like behind the scenes?" I bet they're just joke, aren't they? I'm like, yeah. So that's it for today. Thank you for that lovely birthday surprise.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Robin is still visibly in tears at his own joke. So thank you very much. My name is Will Hayward.
My name's Mel Owen.
My name is Anthony Slaughter. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.